All right, what's happening, gentlemen? Welcome to this episode of the Dadhood. I have Chelsey Murdock on today, and we're gonna dive into this. This is a new part of the series. It's all about bringing experts in to provide tools for you dads so that you can be best versions of yourself. And when you become the best version of yourself, you become a better dad innately. And we got to take that time, gentlemen. I had an opportunity to do a session with Chelsey here that we're about to talk about. And first off, it's called compassionate inquiry. And I'm not a huge talk therapy guy. I'm going to be honest. And I know a lot of the listeners have reached out and they've expressed that same thing to me. But look, guys, we need outlets. We need I don't even want to use the word escape, but we need someone to listen to, and just to hear us and to explain the fact that sometimes we're not okay, and that's okay. But we can become better versions, like I said, of ourselves. And with that, Chelsey, welcome to the show. I'm so excited for this.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. And thank you for giving me the opportunity to work with you. Such a great, I'm so grateful for it. So thank you.
Yeah, no, thank you. That session, I'll be honest, went into it. I'm like, I don't know what to expect. Cool, we'll try it out.
Yeah.
Gentlemen, straight up, I was crying at one point. I was hugging my inner child, which we'll talk about. Just some awesome stuff. So, Chelsey, tell us a little bit about what you do.
Okay. What I want to, so tricky. It really is a tricky thing to explain because so many of us are used to that talk therapy where we just go in and we say what's happening in our life and someone kind of hears what we're saying. And there is some benefit to that. But what I do is we connect with the body. We start to notice that there's tightness in my chest or a closing feeling in our throat. And we sit there and feel that and allow it to be there because so many times we just shut off those sensations because it's uncomfortable. And what happens when we experience some hard times, maybe we went through something traumatic and we didn't have someone there to listen to us, it gets stored inside our body. And what I do is I help to uncover that. So you're no longer trapped in these past experiences. And what happens too, what's really interesting is we don't realize that they're showing up in our day-to-day lives. Those, when we're 5 years old, and now we're 40 dealing with it, but they keep showing up until we actually listen to that 5-year-old. So that's what I do. That's what compassion inquiry is just kind of figuring out those felt sensations inside our body, and hearing what that part of us needs, and being seen in it, right? Where you're okay to have that feeling. You're okay to be seen and nobody's judging you. And one explanation I like saying, which is kind of, I don't know how men will feel about this, but it's like being held. You're being held in a way that just feels so comforting.
You know what I love about that? And I'm going to say it straight up, man, because you're listening to the show and you hear that. And it's sad that Chelsey even has to be I don't know how men are going to feel about it.
Right.
A lot of men, honestly, I think this association, and I'm just going to throw this out there in life with this whole, we need intimacy is men look at that as that means sex, right? But that's not really, I don't think, what the majority of men are even wanting. They do want to be held. I know I want to be held. So I can't speak for everybody, but this whole concept of we just need to be tough all the time and we don't need anybody to support or, hold us, that's nonsense. Everybody loves to be held. We all crave that from the very beginning of our lives, right?
Exactly. Yes. Yep. That's exactly what happens is your mom is there holding you and loving you, or a parent, and letting you know that you're going to be okay. You're this as a baby, you're like uncomfortable or hungry, and that parent is holding you and rocking you and is saying like, you're going to be okay. Like as soon as I change your diaper, as soon as I feed you, you're going to be better. And I think that's what, even like when you reach out to a friend, so many people just want to hurry and fix what you're going through, right? Like they're uncomfortable seeing you be uncomfortable. And I've had to do a year of compassionate inquiry to know that I get that you're in pain right now, but you're going to feel so much better after you feel that emotion. And so I'm not here to like take away your pain. I'm not here to fix you. I'm here to just hold you in that space.
Mm. Oh, it's so good. Like, and again, the thing that I thought was so like amazing about our session is not the fact that, to your point, it's not this, you do one session and you're just like, oh, everything's great. My life's awesome now. It's
Mm-hmm.
bringing light and awareness to something that you're holding onto, something that's locked in your body. As you had mentioned before, we can feel certain things in our body and maybe we don't even understand, like, why do I have, mine was coming up as like lower back pain. And I
Mm-hmm.
even noticed yesterday, I started feeling my back like tightening up. And there was a moment where I stopped and I'm like, I'm going to remember our session and just kind of bring
Oh.
awareness to it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, because it's sparked a lot of times by anxiety and stress, just overload and work. And we talked, in our session, performance was something that came up. Like, I feel like I have to always like be performing at a certain level to be seen. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So for that in itself, I want the listeners to understand this. This is not, again, a one-time fix-all situation,
Yeah.
but shining light on our lives and things that need attention. It's okay, and we can sit in that and we can have discomfort. That's okay. Also, it's
Mm-hmm.
part of the growth, right?
Right.
And slowly by slowly recognizing this and like having that moment yesterday of feeling it and recognizing it, it was just that much more awareness. And over time, I believe genuinely that every time that comes up and I have a little more awareness, little more, it just
Mm-hmm.
becomes less and less impactful.
Oh, it does. It really does. So another thought to have is our brains are neuroplastic. And so our brains can change, right? So you're stuck in this pattern of this is how I have to be in the world. This is how I have to show up. But the more you start to notice, like, oh, my back pain's happening, and then reflect back to our session, you're rewiring. It's there's a saying like neurons that fire together wire together.
Mm.
And so you're rewiring those neurons. So then it may not be fixed right away. It may never fully go away, but you're not going to keep pushing through that discomfort in your back and just, oh, I have back pain. I have back pain. Now you can stop and say, oh, this is what's happening. Oh, I'm noticing I'm doing too much, or this is triggering this part of me. And so then you're going to start doing it. You're not sitting in it as long. Does that make sense?
No, that totally makes sense. And that's like, what a gift, right? When you realize that, we have to, I believe a thing that our society is kind of misleading us by is by this whole notion of quick fixes, right? Like everything
Yes.
has to be addressed right now. And hence like why like pharmaceutical companies, whatever people's pleas, are, and it's all good. It's just like why they're so successful. There's a
Right.
lot of like quick fixes out there, but I think that true inner work, it takes a while. It takes a while, but imagine, and this is for all the listeners, like really take the time to think about it. Like if you are dedicated, you're listening to this podcast for a reason. You want to be a better version of yourself so you can be the best dad possible. Like being a parent is a lifelong journey.
Mm-hmm.
And so is working on ourselves. And like, I
Yes.
really believe it's key to work on yourself first. And that's not taking away from your children, gentlemen. Like you working on yourself and becoming a better version of yourself is not taking away from your children. It's actually providing a better space for them
Mm-hmm.
to know that they can take care of themselves as well. But then you show up better.
Right.
The
Right.
stress to me is not the best dad. I'll be straight up with that.
Right. Well, if you think about it, when you're stressed, when you're feeling that emotion inside or that discomfort, you're reacting to your kid, right? Any
Hmm.
little thing, you're snapping at at, they're being too rambunctious, they're being too loud, and then you snap at them. But if you start to do that inner work and realize what's happening inside of your body, that's where you can take the break and be like, okay, what's happening for me? Why is this triggering me? Why is their reaction creating a reaction in me? And then you can stop and ask, like, hey, what's happening for you? And you get to understand what's really going on with your kid instead of just like, stop doing this, stop doing, all of us parents are constantly like, stop. But now we can actually take that time and be like, well, what's going on? Well, what's what's happening inside of you? And a lot of times, like, you ask them a question and it has nothing to do with that exact moment, right? Like, I have two girls and one girl will be nagging the other one. And if I'm just like, leave your sister alone, stop, 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 I'm not understanding what's happening to them. But because I've done my own work, I can stop and take a breath and say, oh, what's happening for you? And so many times it's like they're jealous that, this sister can do this and they can't, or maybe someone hurt their feelings earlier in the day. And so then you can connect with your kid and actually have those like powerful moments of bonding and seeing them. Because so many of us, we grew up in a time when you didn't, parents just like, you were in timeout, you were in the corner, you were punished for a behavior. And we need to stop like looking at behavior as like they're bad kids. Like, no kid is bad. They just there's something going on underneath. And that's what we've gone through our whole lives, right? Is we have this stuff. And so we're either trying to overwork or like, I'm a people pleaser. So it's like making everyone like me so that I know that I'm okay and safe in this world. And really, that's putting me at the back burner. And I'm not taking care of my own needs because I'm so worried about taking care of everyone else's needs out there.
Hmm. Yeah, this is so great. Like, and I'm even like, while you're saying some of those things, reflecting back, as we kind of talked about this a little bit during the session we had too, of that just responding to children, right? I do that as a dad a ton. Like, my older one will be like, picking or nagging on the little one. The little one's whining about it. And I get into
Mhm.
protective mode based off of my own life experience. I'm like, don't pick on the small child,
Yes.
you know, and realizing that I'm not even creating the opportunity for both of my children just to explain, like, why is this moment impactful to you? Like,
Yeah. What's happening for you right now?
yeah, like that question. Oh my gosh. Like, if there's one takeaway from this, other than the fact that you need to reach out to Chelsey and have a
Yes.
session, it's that moment right there. Like, what's happening for you right in this moment?
Mm-hmm.
Like, that is not only for your kids, like, I mean, dads, like, listening to this, like, your partners, like, your kids, like, anybody that really matters in your life, like, what a beautiful question to be able to ask them.
Right. Right. Yeah. If you were having a bad day and your wife came home and Katie was like, Thomas, what's happening for you right now? Like, that just gives you this space of like, oh, okay, I can share what's really going on. Or you can even take a pause and look inside and say like, oh man, this thing that happened to me earlier today is really bothering me. Or sometimes it can be even like a past experience is coming up and you don't even realize it until that question is asked.
And you just even saying that, Chelsey, like, really, like, when you said, oh, Thomas, I mean, like, you put it in this scenario with Katie, but like, you asking that question, it made me even think, like, oh my gosh, like, someone's seeing me right now. Like, I am worth someone's attention in this moment.
Right.
And what a gift, right?
Yeah. because we really want to be seen. Like all of us, when
Hmm.
you like break it apart, that's really what we want. There's two really big factors in our life. Like we need our authenticity and we need attachment. And so many times when we're younger, we give up that authenticity for that attachment. And so that's a huge part of what I do is I help people figure out like their authentic selves because we put on different masks to layer because we're like, I need to be seen. I need to be seen. But to be seen in that authenticity, that's where you want to be. Not
Yeah.
seeing that you're an overworker, not seeing that you're a marathon runner or this or that. Yeah, those are all great. And that's the outside validating you. But that authenticity and having someone actually see you for that, the inside, that's where the healing happens.
Mm. Yes. And that's the whole like question when I mean, we've been programmed, right? When someone says, tell me about yourself, the first thing, well, I work here, I drive this car, I'm blah, 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 blah. It's like, okay, those are things you do, but tell me about
Mhm.
yourself.
Right.
And that's where I agree with you. We've lost the authentic self for the acceptance,
Yep.
right?
Mhm.
Wow. Um, so let's chat just a little bit about this portion of like our session. I don't know if this is kind of how you dive in with all of your clients or if there's just something, and I'm not asking you to share anything about any of your other clients, but
Yep.
like our session, we brought up being able to see and identify a time in my personal life, which was associated with the younger years. So like my child version, right? And then being able to acknowledge that child, but seeing it from my love, my compassion, and the dad that I want to be, and
Mhm.
being able to then communicate that back to the younger version that felt, needed a certain thing in his life. Is this part of like the majority of your sessions? Then is that kind of a way that you were able to
Yep.
connect? Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So, um, compassionate inquiry was developed by Gabor Mate, and he's the one who created the program. His theory is trauma isn't what happened to you, but it's what happens inside of you. Um, so, and that just, excuse me, trauma can be like you're being bullied at school, but you don't have a safe place to go home and talk about it. You had this experience, like someone hurt your feelings, and you don't have that safe space to talk about it. And then that stores in your body. Um, so, what I do is we connect with the body, and it is pretty magical at how those memories come up when you actually sit with that sensation in your body. And then I ask, how old is it? Or, when was the first time you felt this? And so many people, it goes right back to childhood. Um, and so then you get that opportunity to see yourself in the way that you needed to be seen. That, you know, whatever reason, like maybe you have divorced parents, or maybe you have parents that are working multiple jobs. Like there's so many reasons why our parents weren't able to be seen or weren't able to see us. And so there's no blame. Like that's one thing I love about this is, you know, um, let's see, there's a great saying of, um, oh, I just had a brain fart.
It's all good. I have them all the time. So,
I was like so into it. Um, everybody's affected. Oh, shoot. Now I can't think of that saying. Anyway, we don't blame our parents. We're able to hold ourselves in the way that we wished our parents would have held us.
hmm.
Um, and I also think another great part of that is once you start healing that child part, if you do have resentment towards a parent, then you start to have more compassion for them, because now you start to see like, oh, this is impacting me in this way. I can't, I can only imagine what my parent must have been going through because of, whatever their childhood trauma was, or whatever experiences they've been through. And so it creates this whole world of compassion for your parents or the outside world.
Hmm.
And I think all of us just kind of need more of that, right? Like to actually be seen in that compassionate view of, you're not just that moment. You're not just this part of you. There's so many other parts of you.
Yeah, and imagine that just being it. Like, I love that, coming to the table now with the parent or whoever was the, you know, pain point or moment of conflict in your life like that, and just being able to see them in a different light, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because carrying around resentment and anger and stuff, at the end of the day, unfortunately, it only impacts ourselves.
Right.
The other individual is dealing with their own stuff, with all this. But when we carry around that weighs us down. And a byproduct of a lot of times when we have stress, we have anxiety, secondary emotion, anger, it comes out to the people that we care about the most, and we shouldn't be like,
Right.
reflecting that back on them, because they're not the ones that created this initial pain point for you the majority of time. So,
Right.
um,
Well,
yeah.
and another thought too is like, you could respond one way, and like someone else next to you, like another listener, can respond a completely different way. Um, and this has to do with our different parts. Like someone triggers me and might not trigger you. And so then you get to sit with it and think about it like, okay, what's happening for me? Why am I being affected by this person or this response? And like, there's a part of me that um, hates getting in trouble. And so, if someone makes me feel like, oh, I'm in trouble now, I'm in trouble, it's not them really putting that on me. It's me already having that innate feeling inside of me. And then they do something that triggers that part of me. But now I have that awareness, and I can sit with it and I can say, like, oh my gosh, okay, I'm safe, I'm okay. Like I can connect with that inner child because now I know she's there.
Absolutely. Absolutely. This is so good. There's so many things, listeners, I'd love to share about just my experience. But the thing is, the biggest takeaway is we all have to experience it ourselves. That's the biggest gift. And look, a lot of guys will go on here and they'll spend so much on their cars. Let's get new rims on the cars, or
Mhm.
let's look, all the flexing stuff that you do for the gram. I'm going to tell you, gentlemen, no one really gives a shit in the long run. But we can keep pretending we do, or we can actually address the real and do the real work, which is that inner work. Because at the end of the day, no matter how much you look like you're succeeding on the outside, if you're hurting on the inside, um, it, it's not a true win, I would say,
Mhm.
right? The true win is being able to be with yourself no matter what your situation is, and feel love, compassion, empathy for yourself, and joy for life. So, um, Chelsey, where do the listeners, how, like, someone's listening right now and they're like, I'm down for, self work. How do they get a
Yeah.
hold of you? How do they schedule things out? How do they get on your radar?
Okay. So my website is chelseymurdock.com, and it's CHELSEY Murdock, MURDOCK.com. Um, or on my Instagram. You can schedule your appointments with me on my website, or, on my Instagram, I do like breath work and little like reminders or tidbits. So that's always helpful to have. Um, yeah, that's check out my website and you can schedule there. I do a free 20-minute consultation to kind of see if this is a good fit. Like, I want to make sure you feel comfortable and safe before you start investing money in me.
Absolutely. Like, and gentlemen, like, I would recommend just doing that. Take that initial session because, as Chelsey said, it's not for everyone. Just like talk therapy isn't necessarily for me. Like, but these other things are, they work better for my personality. And so I just recommend get on there, try it, but don't go in with this expectation of you having to be tough and macho and all that, like the things that we have to put on for society a lot of times. And not saying that you're not tough. I mean, obviously you are if you're willing to dive into yourself. That's the
Right.
biggest strength I think out there. But go in and be vulnerable. That's what I did in the session. And look, not everybody's going to cry, not everybody's going to, you're going to have your own experience, but like it's worth checking out, and I highly recommend it. And it was such an honor doing that session, and Chelsea's amazing. So yeah.
Thank you. Thank you so
Yeah.
much.
Yeah. Is there anything else that you would just like to say to some of the listeners before we end our session?
um, no, I feel like we did a really great job of covering what I do, and you were so helpful in sharing your experience because I know it's not easy to talk about it. It's not easy to say I went through this and I've been, I had emotions. It being vulnerable can be scary, and I get it. Um, and so, yeah, I'm so grateful for this opportunity to be
Oh
here and
no.
sharing my knowledge. So
No,
thank
we're
you.
so grateful for you, like honestly. And and again, like I said, this session, just as a last reminder, gentlemen, this session was um, it was very impactful, and there was a lot of time in my own life that I would just bottle up all my emotions, not be vulnerable, tough it out, you know, um, and it didn't serve me well then, and it's serving me a lot more now, opening up and diving into the offerings Chelsey has, and many more. So take these sessions as growth, as an opportunity. And as I said, if this episode resonated with you, please reach out to Chelsey. Um, Also, like if they just want to even follow you at first, because I know a lot of people don't want to just dive in. What was your Instagram handle?
It's Chelsey.Murdock, ChelseY.Murdock.
Okay, awesome. Go
Okay.
follow, dive in, do the work, what works for you. And again, Chelsey, thank you so much for your time today. And it was such an honor, not only today speaking with you, but our session was amazing.
Well, thank you so much. Thank you for having me.